In our last lecture, we started discussing about Karl Marx. We discussed about the life history of Karl Marx. We discussed about his work, right? Now, today, we'll discuss about the dialectical materialism, a theory given by the Karl Marx. Actually, the word dialect refers to the method of intellectual discussions by dialogues when you discuss something, right, by dialogue, through dialogue, that is known as dialects. According to a Greek philosopher Aristotle, it referred to the art of deputation by questions and answers. Before Aristotle, another Greek philosopher Plato developed the term in relation with his doctrine of ideas. And even before Plato's, another Greek philosopher, Socrates, used the term to examine the presupposition at the back of all sciences. So, this term is very old. There is one more strand in the meaning of the term dialects. Ideas, that is, discussions through dialogue, is dialects, but apart from this, there is one more strand. It is the idea of dialect as a process. This means the dialect is a process of reason in ascending and descending form. A process of dialogue, a process of reason in ascending or descending form. In ascending form of dialects, one is able to demonstrate the existence of higher reality, that is the form of God. And in descending form, the dialect, one is able to explain the manifestation of higher reality. So, in ascending form, one is able to demonstrate the existence of higher reality, and in descending form, the one is able to explain the manifestation of higher reality in a phenomenal word of sense of experience. There are three laws of dialect materialism. Unit actually, this theory is based on the three laws. First is unity of opposite. Second is negation of negation, and third is quantitative changes into quality. The quantity changes to quality. So this theory, there are three laws, and on the basis of three laws, Karl Marx developed the theory of dialect materialism. So, what is law of unity and conflict of opposite? Unity of opposites. Unity and conflict of opposites, actually. It states that there are the internal sides, tendency, forces of an object or phenomenon which are mutually exclusive, but at the same time they presupposed each other in any phenomenon or in any of the object, right? There are the forces which are mutually exclusive means totally different from each other. There are the forces which are mutually exclusive, they are totally different from each other, but at the same time they presupposed each other, right? The second thing is the inseparable interconnection of these opposite tendencies or contradiction is responsible for the unity of opposites, although they are mutually exclusive, but they are inseparable. Their interconnection is inseparable. Like good is always associated with bad, beautiful with ugly, large with small, right? So they are mutual, they are inseparably connected. They are contradictory, but they are inseparably interconnected, right? And these contradictions, inseparable contradiction, are responsible for the unity of opposites. There is no object or phenomenon in the world which could not be divided into opposites. As I have given you the example, the opposite coexist and one is inconceivable without the other. You cannot think about one without another. Big, small, beautiful, ugly, they are inseparable, and they coexist, and they one is inconceivable without other. These opposite, but the main thing is they cannot coexist peacefully. They coexist. It is important that they should coexist, but they cannot coexist peacefully in one object. The contradictory, mutually exclusive character of opposite necessarily causes a struggle between them. It causes a struggle between them because coexist cannot because these opposite cannot coexist peacefully, right? And these contradictory mutually exclusive character of opposite, these contradictory and mutually opposite characters uh, of this objects, right? They struggle between, there is a struggle between them because they cannot coexist peacefully, so there is a struggle between them. And the unity of opposite is necessary condition of conflict because it takes place only when opposite side exist in one object or a phenomenon. And this is an important condition, that is coexistence of opposites is an important condition, is a necessary condition of the conflict, right? It is the contradiction, the conflict of opposite, that is the main source of development of matter and consciousness. Why it is necessary that the opposite should coexist? Because it is the main source of development of consciousness. How a consciousness will develop? It is the main source of development of consciousness as well as of matter. When opposite coexist, right, and they contradict with each other, there is a conflict between the opposites. This helps in development of consciousness as well as development of matter. Development is struggle of these opposites. One opposite or tendency of two tries to maintain a status quo, and the other counterparts tries to radically change the status quo. Right? Why this is how this consciousness develop? Right? There is a development of struggle in between these opposite. Right? The two one that is one opposite tries to maintain the status quo, let the position like this only, and other tries to change the status quo, so they contradict with each other, right? One tries to maintain the status quo, other tries to change the status quo. Law of negation of negation. What is the law of negation? The term negation was introduced in the philosophy by Hegel, but with an idealistic meaning. This term was introduced by the Hegel, as Hegel was a philosopher, a great philosopher, and Karl Marx was influenced by Hegel. So he has borrowed this theory from Hegel. Dialectical materialism. This theory has actually Karl Marx borrowed the idea from Hegel, but Hegel used the term negation with reference to ideas or in idealistic meaning. Hegel believed that negation was present in development of idea of thought. So he used this negation in terms of ideas. The history of society also consists of change of negation of old social order by the new. Right? According to Hegel, that there is a chain of negations, like there is a thesis which leads to antithesis and then the synthesis, like thesis, antithesis and synthesis part, like like this stage A, thesis, antithesis and synthesis. This is negation of negation theory. Negation means that thesis means ideas, a set of ideas, which majority holds a set of ideas, but because of unity of opposite, some new ideas develop because of the contradiction between the opposites, right? A new ideas developed, and there are very few takers of these ideas, and these new ideas are called the antithesis, right? Thesis, antithesis coexist, but they cannot coexist peacefully. There is a contradiction between thesis and antithesis, right? Action and reaction, right? Thesis and antithesis, and then because of these struggle at one point of time, with the progress, this antithesis become thesis and new antithesis developed for older ideas, and this is a process of synthesis, right? So negation of negation is what? Negation is, Hegel has given this term negation with reference to ideas. The history of society consists a chain of negation, that one replaces the another, and then new one come, then new one replaces the other, and then the another new one comes. Negation is not something introduced into an object or phenomenon from outside, but it is a result of objects or phenomenon's own internal development. It existed. It is internally, it existed there. There is, it is not because of any external forces. Object and phenomenon develop on the basis of their own inherent internal contradictions. They themselves create a condition for their destruction, for change into a new higher quality. This is negation of negation, because they inherit certain properties. There are some internal contradiction because of unity of opposite, and they themselves create a condition for their destructions, right? And this leads to change into new order and of higher quality. That is thesis. Thesis and antithesis coexist because of contradiction between the ideas. The antithesis become thesis, and a new antithesis developed for this thesis. The previous antithesis become thesis, and a new antithesis developed for the new thesis, and this cycle goes on. That is negation of negation, and this happens because of contradiction position, because of the internal contradiction between the objects, right? Dialect negation consists of the fact that something of state which is negated is lost, something become a part of new and negating stage, and something entirely new is added. That is, something of stage which is negated is lost, something is lost. There was a thesis, there was an idea, right? Then because of the contradictions, because of the unity of opposite, there was antithesis. Thesis and antithesis coexisted in a certain condition, and then because of these, there is a struggle between thesis and antithesis. Thesis, over a period of time, thesis is lost and antithesis become new thesis, and a new thesis has been the new thesis developed for a new antithesis developed for that thesis, right? So something become a part of a new, negating stages, and something entirely new is added. The new never takes over old completely as it is. It takes from the old only certain elements or aspects, right? So certain the new takes certain elements or aspects from the older one, right? So this is negation of negation. That is, one get obsolete, then a new become a thesis, and another new developed for as an antithesis for that existing condition. That is, there is an existing condition, and a new condition which is contradictory to the existing condition developed, and over a period of time that new condition become the reality, and a new condition, that older reality get obsoleted, and because, and this antithesis become the thesis over a period of time with the progress, and a new antithesis developed for this new thesis. Then third law is transition of quantity into quality. In nature, everything is in state of continuous movement and changes. It is dynamic, right? Everything is dynamic. There is a continuous movement and the changes in nature. Process of change is not simple or gradual, but it is a product of quantitative advances which results in abstract qualitative change at a particular moment when mature conditions are present, right? See, that this process of change of quantity into quality is not that simple or it's gradual, but it is a product of quantitative advancements. That small changes happens, and then it results in the qualitative changes at a particular moment when mature conditions are present. There is always a change from lower to higher, simple to complex, homogeneous to heterogeneous level of reality. Quantitative, like take an example of aging. Small quantitative changes start at the age of 30, 35. That right, and gradually over a period of time, a day comes when this quantitative change turns into the quality. That means this those gradual small changes in skin, changes in your weight, changes in your metabolism, changes in your sleep habits. This results over a period of time because of these small quantitative changes. This results over a period of time, this results in abstract qualitative changes. And you can one fine day you can observe that there is a change, that is a person has died or something like this, right? This change is always from lower to higher, simple to complex, homogeneous to heterogeneous level of reality. Quantitative changes occur continuously in every object of nature. Slowly it occurs continuously in nature, and they reach to a limit determined by nature of process. After a leap, inevitable occurs, right? Then small changes occurs every time. The limit beyond which continuous changes is interrupted is described as a measure philosophy, and this leap is a qualitative change. This continuous changes is interrupted and is described as a measurable philosophy. When you can measure those small changes, at one fine day you will find you will find a major changes in an individual, right, or in this society. Then that is known as the qualitative change. Dialect level, or a law of transition from quantity to quality and vice versa, is that continuous quantitative changes upon attaining measure causes abrupt quality changes, which in their turn determine the character of the further continuous quantitative changes. Right. So these are the three laws on the basis of which the Karl Marx has described the theory of dialectical materialism. Right, that is unity of opposite means the two conditions which are contradictory to each other, they coexist, but they do not coexist in peace. They cannot coexist in the peace. And because of contradiction between the unity of because of contradictions of the opposite, this give rise to a new condition, right? Next is negation of negation, negating the negate. That is, over a period of time, the older that over a period of time, the new become older and older get obsoleted, and a new antithesis developed, a new opposite developed for the thesis phase, right? That is negating the negate. And change of quantitative changes into quality change. That every change is dynamic, society is dynamic, right? There is a continuous process of change. This continuous process of change is natural, and small changes always occur or happen in the nature or in the society or in any of the phenomenon. And this one fine day, these small quantitative changes leads to the qualitative change, right? Okay. Karl Marx was a philosopher, a sociologist, an economist, and a revolutionary. So he was very much aware about the poor conditions of the working class. He has seen the poverty of this class. He has seen the economic inequalities between the capitalist and the working class, and he has seen the exploitation of workers. So, because of all these change, Marx wanted to understand the present society. Why there is an economic inequality, why there is an exploitation of workers, why they are living in the poor conditions, and why there is a poverty, right? So he wanted to understand the present society, and he wanted to change it. He wanted to change the conditions of the working class. So in order to understand the present, he has to understand the past. right? So he has to understand the past, then only you can understand the present, because we inherit every, as we said that we inherit some of the properties from the past, right? And there is a change, because change is a continuous process. How past impacts the present, how and what factors were responsible for the changes in the past, which is responsible for the present conditions. So he studied the past, because a past is responsible for the present, and present will be responsible for the future, it will lead to the future, right? So he studied the past history, he tried to understand the past, he tried to understand the past societies. So he studied about the slave society. Then slave society leads to feudalistic society, feudalism, and then feudalism has given rise to the capitalist. And now he wanted to understand what after capitalism, and he has given after capitalism there will be communism. So he tried to understand how past impacts the present, and how present will impact the future. So he studied about the past society, he studied about the slave society. Slave society has given rise to feudalistic society. Feudalism leads to capitalism, and now what after capitalism, according to Marx, it will be communalism. So slave given rise to the feudalistic society, and then to capitalistic society. Then what? Is there any identifiable law which explains and another class which work for those landowners, right? The feudalistic class was there. Again, there was an exploitation of the worker from the zamindar and others, and then again there was contradiction between the two classes, and this contradiction leads to a new change, leads to a new type of a society known as the capitalistic society. Then this is negating the negate, because feudalistic society negated the slave society, and the capitalistic society again negated the feudalistic society, then negating the negate. And in capitalistic society again there are two classes, the worker class and the capitalist class. Capitalists are those who owns the material, who owns the mode of production, who haves, right? Haves are known as the capitalist, and there is another class known as have not. They those who don't own the class, those who don't own the mode of production, and they work for the capitalist, right? And the capitalist again, they are opposite to each other, right? They coexist, and the contradiction goes on between the capitalist and the worker. This is unity of opposite, but they coexist, they have to coexist in this society, right? Because without each other they cannot survive, right? Then comes the quantitative changes into quality. According to Marx, one day these workers will that small changes, small rifts are going on in the society, and one fine day these quantitative changes will lead to the qualitative changes, and a new order will come. And negation of negate is that new order will negate this capitalistic order. So according to Marx, it is a matter, it is a class which is responsible, right? Each that it is a class which is actually, or a matter which is responsible for these changes, right? That is, it is the class, each stage refers to a class, and origin of class lies in the economy, not in the ideas, right? And matter is engine of history. That according to this Marx, stage a is that stage where material or matter, say an example of the slave class, he explained this theory on the basis of history, right? On the basis of matter, that in slave class there were two classes, and then this has given rise to another social order known as the feudalistic society, and feudalistic society has given rise to the capitalism, and this capitalism will lead to a new social order, right? And a new classes, or this capitalism will lead to a new social order which will be a classless society according to Karl Marx, right? So this not the ideas, but it is the, according to Marx, it is the class or the material or the matter which is responsible for changes in this society. So that is why this theory is known as theory of dialectical history, theory of dialectism and historical dialectism, because he studied about the history. According to him, there is a history that material or a class is responsible for the changes, and this will lead to a new social order, right? Okay. For Marx, history is a story of human labor and struggle. It is not a story of struggle of abstract ideas. It is story of human struggle against and in hostile, right? Struggle for, there were this struggle. What is the struggle for this survival, struggle for the survival against the nature. There is a struggle against the nature, struggle for the survival, struggle against each other, and this has given rise to the one class against other, right? So according to Marx, that there is always been a struggle for the existence, right? History is a story of human labor and struggle. It is not the story of struggle of abstract ideas. It is not the ideas. It is the story of human labor and the struggle, and the story of human struggle is against and in hostile, right? That is there is a struggle for the survival, that they struggle against the nature for their survival, and they struggle against one another for their survival, and this struggle against one another leads to one class against another, right? Right. Okay. The history all of actually to existing society is history of class struggle. So it is, there is always a class struggle. History is story of class struggle over opposing material interest and society. Why struggle? Why classes struggle against each other? Why there is a struggle between the classes? Why? Because of opposing material interest and resources. There is a struggle over opposing material interest and resources, because every class has their different interest and they want to fulfill their interest. Because of their opposite material interest and because of the limited resources, there is a struggle between the classes. Like in slave society, there were two classes, master class and a slave class. Master class and the slave class. Master class owns the slave class, and slave were supposed to work for their master, and the master exploited the slaves, right? So there was an opposing material interest. Master wants to control the slave, and slave wants independence from their masters, right? And then the contradiction between the master and the slave, this has given rise to a new society, feudalistic society or feudal society. Again, in feudal society, there were two classes, that is the lords and the serf. Lords who own the lands, landowners were known as the lords, and the serf were those who work for the lords. They were not the owner of the lands, but they work for the Lord. In return, they get dues, like they get money or say grains or something like this. Feudal society. Then there is they both have different needs, wants, and they have opposing material interest. There is a struggle between the lords and the serf, and this feudalistic society leads to the capitalistic society because of the struggle between the lords and the serf. In capitalistic society, again, there are two classes, capitalist and the worker. Capitalist are those who owns the mode of production. Haves, they are known as haves, and the worker are those who don't own the mode of production, and they are known as have nots. right? So Marx interpreted every society on the basis of matter or economy. So there are many ways how you interpret anything. So Marx interpreted it on the basis of economy. Slave or master class, master in slave society, master were the one who own all the resources or material. In feudalistic society, lords own the lands, right? And in capitalistic society, capitalists are known as haves because they own the mode of production. So Marx interpreted every society on the basis of matter or economy, right? And this has given rise to the classes. This is from where the class origin of class started. Before men do anything else, they must produce the means for their subsistence. Everything else follows from the necessity to produce material means for our subsistence. So, what is important? Before we think about anything else, what we need? We need things. We need means for our subsistence for our existence, right? So every activity we our all actions depends how to produce those material, how to get those material. So all basic human activities leads to material production. And what is the material production? What are our basic needs? Food, cloth and shelter. Why we work? Just to satisfy our basic needs, right? So all our action leads to fulfillment of our basic needs, that is for the material production, right? Materialistic means of our subsistence, basic human activities, that is material production, that leads to food, cloth and the shelter. Material production, there are two types of the relationship, that is the material production. In material production there are two forces of production, right? That is the social relations of production and material forces of production. So material production depends on that. This leads to the two, that is the social relations of the production and the material forces of production. What are the material forces of production? What all we require to produce? Those are the material forces of production, right? Like raw material, like machinery, tools, factories, equipments. These are known as the material forces of production. So for material production, we need all these things. That is the material forces. Apart from material forces, we need social relations. We have material forces. What if we don't have social relation? What is the social relation of production? How you are related to the forces of production, that is the social relation of production. Material forces, that is raw material, machine. But social relation of production, understand the term social relation of production, right? How you are related to the forces of production, whether you own those forces of production or you don't own the forces of production, right? If you own the forces of production, then you are a dominant class. If you don't own the forces of production, then you are working class or subservient class. If you own the forces, then you are dominant class, because I own the mode of production, right? And if I don't own the mode of production, then that is known as subservient class or the working class. And this has given right to the classes. This is how the classes has been originated, that is on the basis of that is with regards to the relationship to the forces of production. What relationship you have with the forces of production, whether you own the forces of production or whether you don't own the forces of production. So this society has been divided into two classes, that is who own it and who don't own it. So this has given rise to the classes, right? So there are two classes, right? That is, one is dominant class and another is subservient class. Dominant class is that class which have the forces of production, so they are known as haves. And if we look into the history, haves in feudal in that is enslaved society, masters were the dominant. Master was the dominant class. In feudalistic society, feudal lords were there. They were dominant. In capitalistic society, capitalist, they are dominant. The capitalist is a dominant class, right? Dominant class is always less in number, right? They are always less in number. And another type, this is the dominant class, they are less in number. Master, feudal lords and capitalists, they have mode of production. Another class is dominated class. Dominated class, they are known as have nots, because they don't own the mode of production. They are known as have nots, right? In slave society, in feudalistic society, even in capitalistic society, every society you will find dominant class and the dominated class. The dominated class is always more in number. Very few owns the mode of production, and there are many who don't own the mode of production. In slave society, slaves were the dominated class. In feudalistic society, serfs were the dominated class, and in capitalistic society, workers are the dominated class. So this is the how the classes. This is how the classes has been originated, and this is how the class has been divided, which is the dominant class and which is the dominated class. A dominant class is one which owns the mode of production, which have they are known as haves, and dominated classes which don't own the mode of production, they are known as have nots. Right. So now there are two methods of domination. By controlling, how can you dominate others? Right? How can you dominate others? There are two methods of domination. First method is by controlling the thoughts, beliefs and ideas of working class. How can you control others? That is, when you control their thoughts, they are not able to think, then you can control them, because then they will only listen to you and will agree to you. Control their beliefs. This is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad, this is sin, this is pure, this is impure. Control their beliefs, control their ideas, just control their ideas. And this is one of the method to control the working class. Right? How can they do this? By controlling the means of violence. According to Marx, this army, police, courts, all were formed by the capitalist or the dominant class, to control the ideas, beliefs, thoughts of the working class, so that they can control the working class. Right? Okay. Next is, that is by controlling the thoughts, beliefs and ideas of a working class. When you control the ideas, this will lead to the controlling the consciousness. When you control someone's thought, ideas, then automatically you get the control of their consciousness. They will not think of their own, they'll be the yes men. So this is how you can control someone. By controlling the thoughts, beliefs and ideas, you can control the consciousness of someone. When you control the consciousness of someone, then you can have a control over material and economic basis. Right? Control over material and economic base, and this leads to an ideological superstructure. What is an ideological superstructure? Understand this thing. Ideological superstructure. See, ideological superstructure includes ideas, beliefs, values, morality, law, religion, culture. All this is ideological superstructure. Right? So what is the base of, according to Karl Marx, what is the base of a society? Material forces of production is the base of the society. Right? A material force of production is the base of the society, according to Karl Marx. And there is a social relationship of production. There is a social relationship. We discussed about the social relationship, that is how you are related to the mode of production. Right? So material forces of production is the base, that is matter, that is the economy. matter, material, economy is the base of any of the society. So, according to Karl Marx, every society depends on the economics, on the matter. Even your idea depends on the economy, where you are, where you want to be. Right? That depends on the economy. These are the material forces of the production. This leads to the social relationship of the production, how you are related, whether you are a dominant class or whether you are a dominated class. This is how a society has been formed. That is, there are two classes, the dominant and the dominated class. This is a structure of a society according to the relations with the mode of production. And then this society forms the culture. What is culture? Any man-made thing is a culture. Right? Am I right? What is culture? How culture has been defined? Urban has defined the culture. Any man-made thing is culture. So society, or actually the dominant class, defines the culture, and this culture is this forms a superstructure, ideological superstructure, like ideas, culture, beliefs, morality, values, law, religion. Why this has been done, right? See, what is the function of ideological superstructure? What is the function of ideological superstructure? The basic function is to control the dominated class. How can you control the dominated class? By controlling their consciousness, by controlling their values, thoughts, right? That is what superstructure do. It justify and legitimize the division of labor, class, difference, vast inequality of wealth, status, power that exist in this society. So, what this superstructure do? The superstructure actually justify and legitimate the status quo condition. It justify the division of labor. You are a working class because of your karmas, right? If this is happening to you, if they are doing well because of their karmas or because of their another things, right? They justify the division of labor, they justify the class differences. There is a difference between the class, there is a they justify the vast inequality of the wealth, right? And the status, power that exists in this society. How they justify it? By controlling their consciousness. How can you control someone's consciousness? Through morals, values. It is the thing, according to Karl Marx, this is nothing but this ideological structure, superstructure, this moral, values, law, religion. This has been formed by the capitalist or has, just to control the consciousness of have-nots, so that they could not think of their own, and they should work for them, right? So this function of this ideological structure, superstructure, controls the consciousness, and this working class suffers from the false consciousness, because capitalist or has control this consciousness of the dominated class through this superstructure, and working class suffer from the false consciousness, right? And because of this false consciousness, they remain in class in itself. They remain in class in itself. According to Karl Marx, a day will come when they become class for itself, right? So they remain in class in itself, and because they remain in class in itself, this leads to the this leads to development of the classes. According to Karl Marx, a day will come when the working class, when the dominated class will regain their consciousness, and on that day they will become a class for itself. When they become the class for itself, then a new social order will come, and that new social order will be communism, where there will be no classes. It will be a classless society, and Karl Marx has given the name to that society as a communism. That communism will come, communism will be a classless society, right? And on that day, when they will gain their consciousness according to how they will get their consciousness, the day will they will the day working class will get the consciousness, will regain the consciousness, they will struggle for their rights, there will be rifts between the capitalist and the working class, and this will give rise to a new social order. And that new social order is known as, according to Karl Marx, will be communism, and communism will be a classless society, right? Philosophers have not interpreted the word in various ways. The point, however, is to change it. So, according to Karl Marx, philosophers have only interpreted the word in various ways, but the point is to change it, right? So today we discussed about the Karl Marx, the various theories of the Karl Marx, right? Like materialistic theory, we discussed dialectical materialism theory or historical dialectic materialism theory of Karl Marx, and we discussed about the class conflict theory of the Karl Marx. Both theories are very important, right? That is dialectical materialism, that is dialect is what, that is intellectual discussion by the by the dialogue, and he borrowed the idea, Karl Marx borrowed the idea of dialect from the Hegel. According to Hegel, the ideas are the one which is responsible for changes in the society, but uh, uh, Karl Marx agreed to the theory of dialect given by the Hegel, but according to him, it is not the idea, it is actually material or a class which is responsible for changes in the social order, right? And before giving this theory, he has studied the various types of the, he has studied the history and studied the various types of the previous society, right? And then he reached to the conclusion, it is because of economy, it is because of the class, or it is because of the material which is responsible for changes in the social order. So he has given theory on the basis of history, right? That's all for today. Thank you very much. Namaskar.